Hello, welcome to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike. Um, Hello and welcome. Hopefully you are having a good night. It's very late here. It's 1:05 in the morning. And this is some evil time right now. You know, late night in the darkness. It's quiet. Man, this is my time right now. Okay, so I was finally able to read and catch up with two comics. I've read a whole bunch, but I was going to do a review on these. I mentioned I was. First one up was Milestone Returns, the Infinite Edition Zero. The reiteration of Milestone into the DC universe. Little backstory. I know Static Shock, but I know him from the cartoon. I know him from Young Justice. I've never got a chance to read any of the original Milestone. I missed out on that. I don't know how. I don't even think I knew Static was added to, during the Milestone era. I don't even know if I knew that that existed at that time. It just somehow flew under my radar. I can honestly say I'm a Static Shock fan, but he's not like a huge, I mean, I like this cartoon. I really liked him on the third season of Young Justice. But I mean, a lot of, like, for me in this issue, I wanted to buy it because it was, it's the Milestone. They're bringing that in there. They are all black characters. I like that. I like to support all communities. But I didn't know anything about any of the other characters. So the one negative thing I can say about this, because the art was really good, the writing was really good. I want to say there was 2 pages that were a little confusing, but overall I want to say it was like a B as far as comics concerned, like maybe a 7 out of 10. But it's just because they didn't really do a good job of like explaining who these characters were. Now, I can say like this person. I don't even know who. I mean, if they show up in this comic, or I don't remember seeing them. I know some of them are new villains, like this guy, Icon of Rocket, Hardware, Static. But a lot of the other ones, I think this is a new bad guy. That's a new bad guy, and I don't know who the winged guy is. I mean, they didn't show up in the comic. But it does start out, and it starts off with like kind of like a new origin story, because it starts off like a riot, and the art is like really good. I mean, some of this stuff, like right here, the art is just, I mean, it's not even good. It's phenomenal. The $4.99 price tag, I'd say, is worth the art that was in this book. The art does vary because I think it's done by different writers and different artists, but basically it starts out with an event. It's a riot, and cops use some gas, and it's got some new experimental stuff in it, and it grants people powers. I think I don't know if this was the same origin story for Static Shock, but like in this comic, this is where he gets those powers, like, and it's also where some of his other bullies get their powers, because during this event, what started the whole riot was Static Shock fighting with these other bullies, trying to protect himself, and other people started fighting, and the cops thought it was like a riot, and it just got out of control. That part of the story was pretty easy, and then it goes forward and it gets to like this page, and this page was really confusing because I don't know who this was, and it just shows him like catching on fire or something, like right here. I want to say this is the new villain, but then over here it goes into Hardware, and honestly I thought both pages were the same. I thought it was a continuing story. That's why I'm saying it was kind of confusing. So I don't know if that's Hardware out of his armor, or if this is the new bad guy. It's not really explained. I mean, they don't really say their names a lot. Like, Hardware doesn't go around talking in the third person like, yes, Hardware, all right, we'll get that bad guy. You know, I mean, so it's really confusing on that end. But it's just really those like 2 pages right there where it's like I didn't know if that was the bad guy or if that was Hardware out of the armor. But it kind of jumps back to like this other character, and he's been like kind of investigating like mutant or metas that have been popping up. Then it goes back into Virgil's story, and Virgil's kind of talking about, being bullied, and he's kind of learning his new powers, like him, talking about his powers would show up unexpectedly, like when he was on the toilet and that kind of stuff. Like that most of the time it was like his rage that like helped, you know, control his powers. But it does show that, you know, he goes back up against the bullies, and you know, that's when they show you that his bullies have gained powers as well. I will say I didn't know anything about Rocket and Icon, and I do love that this was like my favorite part of the story. I want to learn more about them. I can't wait for their single issue, because honestly it was just badass. I mean, he is basically like a black Superman. I mean, he has laser vision, he can fly, he's super strong, but I mean, he reminded me a lot of Martian Manhunter, because he has like these psychic powers. Like right here it shows him like moving the guns. This is her. I don't know anything about her powers, but she basically uses like a kinetic based charge, kind of like Gambit, and she like runs into that building. At the very end we do get like a build-up of new villains they look like they're on their way, and they're pretty cool looking in their own right. And then it's like advertisements for season 1 of all these new characters: Icon, Rocket, Hardware. We do get another story from Icon and Rocket, and I will say they were more defined origin stories. Like, I didn't know anything about them, so it was kind of cool that we got a little bit of their origin stories. I just really dug their story. Man, this panel right here, I swear it was one of the best speeches on, because he's an alien, and he's talking about, like, you know, he mentions like why he doesn't want to control Earth, and he could. The way he sees it is like a god controlling an anthill, like it wouldn't be any interest to him. But at the same time, he's telling him like he's seen all these other advanced civilizations in different worlds, because he is an alien and he's traveled to different places. And he's telling me that we're so backwards. It's not even our technology, it's just our morality. You know, we're so backwards, like, and our problem is with love. They even shows them like every time like that someone steps up and tries to bestow love, we either kill them, or, you know, we just shun them. And even when he mentions that that's our problem, is we can't love, like these rich business people are like, you know, I mean, I don't know. It was really like, to me, it kind of sums up us in a big problem. You know, it's one of the reasons I love the community in comics right now, is because I feel a lot of love. But in the world sometimes it's just not there. I wish it was, man. I wish this was back in the 80s, when you used to be able to wave at people, and now it's like, you know, I was talking about it the other day. It was like waving at somebody. It's like people were like, you know, they take it like defensive, or I don't know. It's weird. Okay, but back to this, it does jump back forward to like some static, and it shows like some more like what's to come. But in a nutshell, that's everything that's there. Overall, it was a really good read. I would say I thought it was going to be a lot more emotional. It really wasn't, but I can say the only part I didn't like was that little confusing panel between like if it was the bad guy and Hardware. But I mean, overall, it was really good. The art was just amazing. I am excited to get the #1 so I can learn more about these characters, because trying to find like the first static, and yeah, it's ridiculous. And you know Mike ain't about them trades. He likes to find the single ones. Next up, we got DC's Pride issue, and this is a Jim Lee cover for all y'all that remember. I love Jim Lee. First off, I'd like to explain that some of these characters I don't know, and some of them I know really well. Like Batwoman, I'm a huge Batwoman fan. I'm a huge Question fan. I'm a huge that's one of the reasons I'm into Batman and his world, is the detective side of it. So I am a Question fan, Renee Montoya. I know Jessie Quick a little bit. Huge Poison Ivy fan, Batman world, and a lover of Harley Quinn, of course. I know a little bit about Dreamer, and that's kind of where I'll get to at the end, because she was the new character that was dropped in this comic book. Even though she showed up in the TV show Supergirl, this was her first comic book appearance. And then we got Midnighter, we got Alan Scott. Now I do know he was the first Green Lantern, but I'm not really well versed in his whole story. I do know that they redid his origin story and introduced him as a gay character in the 52 universe. This guy I don't know at all, but I will say he was really badass. Even more so than, I mean, both Midnighter was really cool too. Because I think I've read one little short story with Midnighter during the Future State stuff, but I don't know about the Midnight Eater. Now, I was more excited for the Batwoman. I love Batwoman. I love that she's a lesbian. I think I've loved that since the beginning. I thought that was the coolest thing, that they, like, one of the big Bat family members was a lesbian. It might sound cliche or whatever, but to me it was really cool. They went all out on Batwoman's comic during the new 52 series. If you have not read it or seen it, I mean, I'll show some comics if y'all want to, because it is a series that I've almost completed all the way through, like her Rebirth and her 52. I just love Batwoman. But they went all out on her art. It's like museum art. I don't know who the artist was. I think it's like H.M. Williamson or something like that. I'm bad with names. Okay, so I love the art in this. I mean, like some of the panels like this, I love that. I love when they draw her hair and the cape and but honestly, her story was kind of the worst in the whole book. It wasn't really like a gay pride thing. It was more like this whole she couldn't be who she was supposed to be because her sister. And honestly, it was a lot of like her origin story, and they tend to stick with that. Like even on Batwoman the show, that was the whole first season. I get it. You know, a lot of people don't know that, but they've kind of done that a lot in the comics. I'm just showing art because the art was really good overall in this book. I would give the art. I mean, even though it's a whole bunch of different artists, it was like a 10 out of 10. They went big on the art. I could say this was probably like the least greatest of the art, but it was still like the art in this was still amazing. It just gets better as the story progresses, and the stories get better, because that's what this is. I think it's like 6 or 7 short stories about different LGBTQ characters. If I said that wrong, I'm sorry. But basically it's all about the first Batwoman story is about how she was missing her sister, which is a villain, and they show her that's Mary. And it's just how, it's really like a Mad Hatter story about how he's trying to help Batwoman like become this complete person, and he wants Alice and her to merge together because at one time they were like inseparable, like twins almost. It was an okay story. I'd say it was the worst out of the bunch. It's not to say it was a bad story, but it's just the stories get more amazing as it goes. The next story was like this. It was kind of like this scene set up with Constantine, and Constantine does go back and forth as like a gay and straight guy. He dates Santana, and I know he's messed with some other guys. I forget the term, the correct term. I wouldn't say bisexual. There's another term for it. But it's not about him. He's just he wants to hear about this story about Midnighter and the guy that he's talking to. Because the guy he's talking to is this like magician. I don't know who this guy is. They do mention his name, and I could look at it and tell you. But you know, read the comic. But it does get to this point where they're chasing this vampire and stuff, the Midnighter and this magician guy, and he's a lot like Doctor Strange, as you can see. So I mean, that's some cool stuff. I love seeing different types of wizards and magicians. In the DC universe, I love Dr. Fate and Estragon and Constantine. Justice League Dark is my jam. I will say Midnighter was just, I mean, badass. Like him, whatever he did to this vampire here, I mean, that's the shit's Mcgee right there, man. I don't know what he did, but he punched the art off of his face. I don't know what he did. I don't know if y'all can see that. Hopefully you can. But when I got there, I was like, oh shit, Midnighter's cool. But it's basically like this little short story that this guy is telling Constantine, and that's that story. Still a great story. It was a cool kind of introduction for me to the Midnighter and this magician. I don't know who this is because that's not that magician, but man, that's some great art right there. You know, I'm a very straight man. I'm not trying to say anything, but I do not have a problem with looking at two males, you know, in romance, you know, two gay men. Mike does not have that problem. He does not discriminate. I don't have a problem looking at women, or, I mean, to each his own, man. Romance is romance, and guess what? Evil loves some romance. He loves love. Next up, the story was The Question, and for me, this was like one of the better stories. I love the art in it. I love that Far Sector pinup. But the questions, you know, your typical murder mystery like story, it starts out that way, and it's really like she's trying to track down this friend that she's lost contact with, and she ends up finding her, and it ends up being like the total opposite, where the girl she's after doesn't need to be saved, and it's just showing, you know, like she was kind of into the girl as the story was progressing, and at the end of it, the girl was like just as into her, you know, without knowing, because the question has no face. So, I mean, it could be a guy under the mask dressed up like, you know, she didn't know, but the girl, you know, the girl's into her. She gets a big old kiss, and she gets lipstick on the mask, but at the end, she does reveal, she's like, hey, Renee, and she's like, what, how you know my name, you know? So, whoever this girl is, she seems to be a pretty good detective, too, because she figured out who the question was. Okay, so next up we have Harley and Poison Ivy story, and it's just a story about them talking about their love. I will say the art, I mean, it's done by the guy who's writing Batman Detective Comics. I'm not going to butcher his name, you know, I'm bad with names, but I think it's Mcgee. It is Miriko Tamaki. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I shouldn't have even tried it. But, I mean, overall it was a great story. It's just them talking about their love and what they mean to each other. And, you know, what they'll be there through, like thick and thin. And Poison Ivy, you know, is trying to get a solid answer from Harley. And at the very end, Harley finally does get this answer. And it's a Harley answer. It's like, you dumbass. I love you, girl. Come on now. You know. And, I mean, if y'all don't know, Harley and Poison Ivy is a very more romance story. They're not together all the time, but through thick and thin, they still love each other. It was just a really great read. I wouldn't say it was like really funny. It wasn't, but it had its funny moments. Now I don't know who the other guy is. I thought it was the Blue Beetle, but this is the Alan Scott story, and it's just him, and he's finally admitting that he's gay, and he's coming out, and his son is also gay, and they've been estranged over the years. I think his son is a hero because he was the one in the blue. It has a very old, you know, feeling to it, but whoever that guy in the blue is, I don't know his name, but it is, you know, Alan Scott's son in the comic, and they're basically telling each other of, like, you know, because they're still not comfortable with them being openly gay, like publicly. And, you know, Alan Scott being the father, and he's trying to tell his son, man, I've been in your shoes, look, let me tell you this story. And, you know, and using the ring, he shows and tells him about this guy that he fell in love with, and it kind of goes into the origin story of when he became the Green Lantern. And, you know, him coming out and telling him that he would basically never be alone, that he'd be there for his son, even though they have been estranged, that he's trying to make that up, and at the same time that he's proud of his son for coming out and being open about his gayness. I don't know if that's appropriate, but I'm sorry. His sexuality, I guess you say, I would be more appropriate. But it is really a touching story. It was great. You know, I mean, I don't know a lot about Alan Scott's Green Lantern, but I always liked him. I liked him holding the lantern versus the ring. I liked that he had the ring as well. I do love this pinup of Constantine, the little call me Zantana, you know, note. The pinups were just amazing. I don't even know who this, I think that's Big Barda, and I'm not even sure. The pinups are really good. The next story was Jessie Quick and her date with Andy Curry. And it's all about like how the Flashes are supposedly notorious late. They even make a joke like, you know, on this on the theater right here about, you better be on time for the movie. It starts in 15 minutes. You know, Flashes are always late. You know, and like the girlfriend's like, you're not gonna be late for our date later on, and Jessie Quick's like, I'll be there, you know, and it's just about how she's, you know, and Jessie Quick, she really doesn't understand how a Flash could ever be late at being as fast as they are. And it does go through, and we get our first appearance of a new, you know, because everybody knew that Dreamer was going to be in this, but there is a first appearance from a new villain, and that is the current new Mirror Master, and it's a female. and they show her like right here, but it's a female Mirror Master, and supposedly she's gotten Mirror Master's gun and studied Jessie Quick's and the other Flash's techniques, so she's supposed to be a more improved Mirror Master, which is kind of cool. I always liked Flash's Rogue Gallery. But it's basically like the new Mirror Master's trying to, you know, make her be late and stuff, and like at the end of it, you know, and there's a big fight and everything, and Jessie Quick does save the day, and she makes it on time for the date, and she's still trying to figure out how all the other Flashes were late, but she kind of is getting more grasp of the situation. Next up, we got a story about Piper and the Drummer Boy, I think is his name, and the Drummer Boy might be an all new character. I'm not positive, but it was just that the Drummer Boy is trying to enslave Gothamites with this drumming beat. Like, he's able to hypnotically take them over, and he's getting them to put money in his GoFundMe account so he can make money. And come to find out the Pied Piper shows up, and he's trying to, you know, take him out and stuff, and while he's fighting him, he's like, "You villain, don't do that. I'm the Pied Piper." And Drummer Boy's like, "You little, you know, punk." I was about to curse. And he's like, you little punk." He was like, "Man," and he tells this story about, like, and it's real world stuff, because he tells a story about how, like, you know, he's really getting that GoFundMe to help, like, the homeless and gay community, how they're being starved and beaten up by, like, this rich, wealthy landlord that oppresses, like, the gay community, and he specifically targets the gay community. So the villain actually talks Pied Piper, the hero, into going after the landlord, but in a more, like, legal way. But they do show up in his backyard, and they're like, "Hey, we could do this the easy way or the hard way," and Pied Piper ends up talking to the landlord and selling all the properties that the gay people own and stuff like that, so he could stop oppressing them. So they end up, like, saving the day, and at the end of it, they show at the bottom, it's like it shows them that the Drummer Boy and Pied Piper might show up in more storylines together, fighting oppression. But I mean, overall it was a really good story. I'm not going to say it sounds like I'm making fun of it, but I mean, the art was really good. I don't know anything about Pied Piper, or if the Drummer Boy was brand new. I think I know a little bit about Pied Piper, but maybe, I don't know. Okay, next up we have Dreamer, and I can say Dreamer was, I love the story. The art was really good. You could see they put all their effort into this story, because it was like her first appearance, and she was big on Supergirl, big enough to make it into the comic. I mean, it was pretty self-explanatory. It's just, you know, like, she's getting ready to go on a date. They don't really tell you who until a couple pages into it. But she's talking to Supergirl. Supergirl's like, "Hey, you need any help? You know, I know you're on patrol." Dreamer's like, "Nah, I got this." She ends up, like, secretly, she was, like, lying to Supergirl, and she's going after, like, it's the League of Assassins. But they're like about to bomb. I guess they're in I don't know. I forget, Star City or where they're at. Metropolis, but they're about to bomb some city and, like, purge it, you know, League of Assassins style. And Dreamer ends up, like, stopping them. She ends up saving the day, and she does end up making, you know, to her date. The art was amazing. The fight and everything with the League of Assassins was great. You know, the League of Assassins doing their ninja goodness, assassin goodness. You know, Dreamer's really cool. I can say the one thing that I'm really confused on, because it said she was a transgender hero, and I'm kind of confused on that, because it kind of says that she was always a woman, so I don't understand. And then she's dating a guy, and it's like Brainiac 5 or something like that. So y'all gonna have to help me out there. I didn't understand that. I'm gonna have to look it up. But I mean, overall, it was a really good story. I liked the Dreamer. I liked her concept. I liked the way she looked. I hadn't seen her on Supergirl. I hadn't made it that far, so she was new for me. I will say I like this pinup with Poison Ivy and Harley. The last story was one of my favorite guys, but Aqualad. I love Aqualad ever since they predominantly showed him in Young Justice, and they kind of brought him more to the front line. But it was really a story about, like, him not being alone. They're at a gay pride parade. Eclipso shows up like a G. I love Eclipso. I don't see enough of Eclipso. I think he's such a big bad guy they need to focus on. But I mean, he shows up. Aqualad tries fighting him by himself, and the whole story is about like unity and oneness, and that he wasn't alone. The guy that he's with at the gay parade ends up running away, and Aqualad thinks that he's like running off to save his hide, but he literally goes out and grabs like every gay LGBTQ character that's out there, or LGBTQIA character. I'm sorry. But basically they show up and beat the heck out of Eclipso, and that's the day. Yay! It was a good story overall. It was still cool. Like, I mean, it was well written. The art was really good. I love seeing Eclipso. I thought I mean, he just looks good. Like, I mean, he was beating the heck out of Aqualad by himself. So I mean, there was some danger there. But overall, it was a great issue. I don't know if it was worth $10. I would say some of the pinups were amazing. I do like at the end of it they give you these little bios like on like popular, you know, LGBTQIA characters, like Thunder, John Constantine, White Canary, and one of my favorite, man. I wish they would have had one of his stories in here. Negative Man from Doomsday, Doom Patrol. Sorry, I love Doom Patrol, man. The show, I love the comic. It was another series I was new to. Okay, I try to keep this as short as possible. I will put time codes because they're all separate stories. I was wanting to do a review anyways, so bam, and I love doing reviews, man. If y'all like this, comment, subscribe, anything I need to do better, anything I'm doing really good at. Thank y'all for watching if you made it to the end. I know it was long, I tried to keep it short, but shit, stories. Okay guys, thank y'all. I know it's late. I appreciate every comment, every like, every share, everything, man. I have linked my Instagram account, say hi. I have my email if y'all want to talk to me. I got multiple ways you can chat up with me. I'm a very chatty guy. Hit me up. Find out for yourself. Y'all have a great night. See you next time. And be evil.